Manager for the County of Santa Barbara. And again, we wish to thank everyone for being here tonight. If our Spanish interpreter can hear, if we have anyone who is needing interpretation, please let us know. We'll make an announcement from the stage. And there are headsets in the back if anyone is needing interpretation. And of course, Joe Black is our sign language interpreter. Joe is from Independent Living Resource Center, so thank you very much to the center. See that Senator Hanna Beth Jackson has just arrived and made it through the traffic. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. And again, we're going to have more speakers. I know Sheriff Bill Brown, for example, is on his way, as is Rob Lewin, our Director of the Office of Emergency Management. So first I wanted to bring up First District Supervisor Doss Williams.
Good evening. I am so happy to see so many people here today. I have to tell you that, though I've served this community in one capacity or another for about 14 years, there's no time that I've been more proud to represent you than at this challenging. And we're not trying to scare you with the press conference that was this morning or the new maps, but we know that we want to learn from each one of these events that we've been through. And we know that even though from my perspective, our folks have been doing a great job, that we want to do it better every single time. And that one of the ways that we can do that better every single time is if we give you these maps early as possible, explain them so that you have time to look at them, ask questions before the next emergency. And same thing goes for the new communication that we're unveiling with evacuation. I also know that there are many questions here going to be here tonight about debris removal. We will talk about that. The good news is we have solutions for small lots. We're going to do a pilot program this weekend in one neighborhood, do 3 roll-off boxes of removal per inundated home. This was a very complicated, very difficult to accomplish move, and thankfully FEMA has been flexible with us on this, and that there's 2 volunteer organizations, the Montecito Bucket Brigade and Habitat for Humanity, are stepping up to help make sure that we didn't break the law as we try to help you remove some of your debris. There's not yet a solution for large lots, but we had or at least not more than the expensive solutions that are already out there. But we met today with the governor's staff who are in town about this issue. It's mainly about we need some dispensation from the state to be able to bring this material to our landfill so that people in larger lots might be able to remove without pay. I will be back for questions. I'm going to step out for a second because I'm meeting with a bunch of the residents of folks that were directly affected and need that mud removed this weekend. But I will be back for Q&A, and we have some of the finest here today to present and explain those programs and explain that map and explain that new evacuation methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Williams. Next up, I'd like to introduce Matt Pontes, Assistant CEO with the county.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Pontes, Assistant CEO. I am leading recovery effort, work folks, hundreds behind the scenes, get our communities ready, storms, and recover from the January 9th County Emergency Operations Act collaborating with federal, state, local organizations. Continued FEMA, Cal OES, the small businesses are included in this. It's important to ensure the broad needs of the community met through united. We're also working with community organizations and the County Volunteers Organizations Assistance Disaster, commonly known as OAS. Focus on the long-term recovery. Tonight, you're going to hear what to expect future rain events, how to plan for a new normal. We'll also hear about our ongoing recovery efforts, including more on this week. Local Recovery and Assistance Center successfully transitioned to a disaster continues to operate. Calvary Chapel, 1 North Cali Chapter. Handouts are available in the back of the auditorium. Days and hours of representatives from FEMA, Cal OES, disaster recovery are also here this evening, available to speak. We are establishing an information community of Montecito to be available to address questions and concerns. We're also developing meet with residents, discuss what is occurring in the county, hear you about your needs. We're producing videos on topics of interest, continue fighting up. Finally, pleased to announce the launch of our new storm readiness recovery website with resource information for recovery, the interactive storm map, information covered this evening. We encourage you to visit this community resource, Ready SPC. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting, for your support. Turn it over to Rob Lewin, Director of Office of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Mr. Pontus. First, let me begin by saying it is good to be here at a meeting in Montecito. And it is particularly good to be at a meeting here. It was only a matter of months ago that some of us were here encouraging the alerts. Other pre-disaster information. Clear to me then that the community cares, always have a community that has readiness. Mr. Renee who led the getting your students out of the school to another school temporarily and led getting them back here, deserves a tremendous amount of credit. Hope he's here. He and I had many conversations over the course of the two disasters, and I cannot say enough about it. I know you. Let me begin on why we're here. We are continuing to move forward on recovery. You all being here is a clear sign of that recovery, but we also need to be here to prepare for future storms. And you know, we can do both. Tonight, we are providing you with an interactive map that shows the risks associated with future storms of a ½ inch per hour or more. The map over there is now an interactive map, and it shows the burn areas for the entire county of concern, the Alamo, the Sherpa, the Whittier, and the Thomas burn area. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see if we can get some folks to sit up here and make some room. Come on in and we'll make some room. Those folks that are blocking the door, come on up. Don't be bashful. think it is important that everybody gets to hear. We have a fire department here, so he's going to keep an extra eye on us. And you can sit right in front of me too. I'm not that good to look at, so it's just fine. Have your back. And there's certainly still some room up here on the benches. You're welcome to come up here on the bench. Okay, we'll continue on then. Yeah, come on up. Come on up, ma'am. Okay, I'm going to talk right into it. You stay on us about this. Again, I want to talk about the interactive map tonight. The map was developed using comprehensive studies conducted by the United States Forest Service BEAR team, Burn Area Emergency Response Team, the CAL FIRE Watershed Emergency Response Team, or known as WERT, and the State Watershed Corps team. These teams worked hard, and they've worked hard on this. They arrived first on December 10th while the Thomas Fire was still actively burning. They did a lot of work, and they were a team that consisted of hydrologists, engineers, geologists, soil scientists, civil engineers, foresters, and biologists. And then the data was peer reviewed. Our flood control district and my office, the Office of Emergency Management, were engaged with these teams, and together the effort of each of these teams has given us this map that we're presenting. This map takes into account the burn areas and the impact of the 1-9 debris flow. And it also demonstrates the choke points and the impacts of those choke points along the channel. And the map will be further updated as we get new analysis. So let us not be fooled that the mountains have been flushed of the debris from the 1-9 debris flow. The mountains and the canyons are still loaded with rocks, sediment, and other debris. Our immediate health and safety priorities are to clean the debris basins and channels, which are what catch most of the material coming off the mountains and canyons, so we are ready for the next storm. And I can assure you this is our focus every single day and has been even before the fire when we were cleaning out those basins. Let me describe how the map works and what it is stating. You can now go to the website and type in your address, and you can identify if what risk area you're in. The extreme risk area, which is the red areas on the map, indicates that your property is located in an extreme risk area. This means that the debris flows, similar to the 1-9 debris flows, could impact you. If rain is predicted to be a ½ inch per hour or more, you would be ordered to evacuate, and you should leave immediately and seek shelter in a location outside the evacuation area. If you're in one of the yellow areas or the gray area, your property is located in a high-risk area. If rain is predicted to be a ½ inch per hour or more, you would be at risk from being cut off from essential services like natural gas, potable water, sewer, electricity, cellular phone service, and other utilities for multiple days. Roads may become impassable and even deadly. You should leave immediately and seek shelter in a location outside the evacuation area. The maps are both in English and Spanish. In addition, we have web pages in both languages. We now need the public that lives in or near burn areas to go to this interactive map and identify what the risk is. You can access this map at readysbc.org. You also need to sign up for Wear and Prepare alerts, which has a link on this same website. Because if we can't reach you, we can't alert you. And now I'd like to introduce Division Chief of Operations and also one of the incident commanders during the 1-9 debris flow, Chief Kevin Taylor.
Thank you, Director Lewin, and thank all of you for being here tonight. It's wonderful to look out and see so many familiar faces. Now that you've had an opportunity to see the new interactive map that we've produced, I would like to talk to you about what we are going to ask you to do and alert you to what emergency responders will be doing when we have a storm that is forecast to rain more than a ½ inch an hour. Again, our planning threshold is equal to or greater than 1/2 inch per hour. And that's because that amount of rainfall can cause an event similar to the 1-9 debris flow. We generally receive a fairly accurate forecast from the National Weather Service at the 72-hour mark. If we receive a forecast that indicates that amount of rain, we will issue a pre-evacuation advisory to alert you to this expected storm. At the same time, emergency responders from all disciplines will begin to meet and review our implementation plans that we refined after the 1-9 debris flow. At the 48-hour mark before the storm is forecast to arrive, the Sheriff's Office will issue a recommended evacuation warning. This is done 48 hours in advance to give you time to plan your evacuation. At the same time, the emergency responders will continue to implement their incident action plans. 24 hours before the forecast storm arrives, if the forecaster's confidence improves or remains unchanged, the Sheriff's Office will issue a mandatory evacuation order. This is when it's time for you and your family to leave. Emergency responders will begin to pre-stage resources in the areas that are identified on the interactive map as extreme or high-risk areas. 12 hours before the rain is forecast to arrive, the mandatory evacuation orders will become effective. This is when all community members should have left and be completely out of the evacuation zones. This is also when emergency responders from outside the area will begin to arrive to reinforce our local emergency responders. And then finally, 2 hours before the forecast storm, the roads will be closed, and those will be enforced by our local law enforcement agencies. All of the emergency responders that are out in the field will be staged in safe locations so that they can effectively respond to the areas that are affected if there is another event. So as you can see, our evacuation plan has been refined since the 1-9 debris flow. Our goal is to clearly communicate to you what the risk to you and your family is, what we want you to do when we issue an alert, and where we want you to go in advance of the predicted storm. The number one thing that you can do today to prepare yourself and your family is to sign up to receive life-saving alerts at readysbc.org. And now I introduce Sheriff Bill Brown, who will explain the evacuation process. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank all of you for being here tonight. Tremendous turnout. I think if the fire department is willing to look the other way for the building, I think it's only fair the sheriff's office look the other way for parking violations tonight. So. You have just heard about the significant and the heightened danger that emergency managers and those who live below various burn areas, including Thomas Fire, most of you live below, are now facing due to the damaged condition watershed that's above us. The experts tell us that as a result of that, we'll now take less rainfall, move debris than we did on the 1-9 debris flow event. Accordingly, a strong possibility exists that we are going to need to call for future evacuations. And the sheriff's office is responsible for conducting those evacuations, so that's why I'm here tonight to talk about them. Now, let me start by saying that we understand that evacuations are inconvenient, they are troublesome, but they are also temporary, and they are incredibly important. But most important, they can be life-saving. And we have developed 3 specific evacuation categories with clear definition to what each one means and what course of action should be taken if those evacuation categories are materialized. The 3 evacuation categories are as follows: pre-evacuation advisory, recommended evacuation warning, and mandatory evacuation order. A pre-evacuation advisory means that a determination has been made that you are in an area where there is a possible risk of danger to life or property. And community members in a pre-evacuation advisory, or who are given a pre-evacuation advisory, should leave immediately. If they have, they should immediately begin preparations to leave and should closely monitor the development. And whether it's this category or any other, if at any time you feel personally threatened, you should not wait for additional notification. Rather, you should take action immediately to remove yourself from the area. The next category is a recommended evacuation warning. And if you're told that you're in a recommended evacuation warning area, it means that danger exists and that it has been determined that you live in an area where there is a high of either loss of life and or property. If you are in a recommended evacuation warning area, Sheriff's Office is strongly encouraging you to relocate to a safer location for your own safety. While personal discretion is allowed, it is not advised. People with access or functional needs, or people who have large animals, should use this opportunity to evacuate immediately if they receive a recommended evacuation under all circumstances. The third category is the most serious and urgent: mandatory evacuation. You heard that's issued in a storm situation. It means that that storm is continuing towards us and that meteorologists have determined that it is likely going to hit our area. And if you receive a mandatory evacuation order notice, it means that a danger exists and determined that you're in an area where there is an extreme risk for loss of life and property. And the sheriff's office will order you to relocate immediately to a safer location. Personal discretion is not an option, and a mandatory evacuation will apply to the public in general, to the entire area. People who do not comply with the mandatory evacuation order will not be forcibly removed. I'm not going to drag you out of your house. But reality is, if you remain, you do so at your own peril, and you should not expect rescue or other life-saving assistance after the onset of an emergency event. So to recap, there's pre-evacuation advisory, which means that there's a possible risk of property. You should begin preparation. Recommended evacuation warning means that there is a high risk to life and property, and you should relocate to a safer location. Mandatory evacuation order means there is an extreme risk to life and property. You are instructed to leave Now, you can review those terms and you can get a copy of those definitions by going to readysbc.org, a website you'll be hearing a number of times tonight. Tremendous amount of information for you. ReadySBC. Now, this new evacuation terminology will be used in the future for both fire and storm debris-related debris flow events. But I want to make it very clear that the timeline we're rolling out here today, just discussed, is a protocol that applies specifically to projected storms that accompany dangerous flow. We will use a different protocol during any future wildland fire events, albeit with the same descriptor category. It will be very important for residents to become familiar with protocol and for them to understand that if they live in an area of extreme or high risk, need to be ready to respond. Warning. If a severe storm is predicted to hit our county, it's important to remember that even if you live in an area that is not directly adjacent to a water, you may still be in a high-risk area, and we may still urge you or order you to evacuate. This is because of the strong likelihood of you losing your utilities, including electricity, potable water, sewer, gas, cable, cellular telephone service, and the fact that you could be stranded, could essentially be an island for up to 15 days. By remaining in the evacuated area, you could actually exacerbate the problem in the community because you may subsequently need to be rescued or evacuated on an emergency basis, thereby tying up our limited first responder resources. So for these reasons, we're asking everyone who lives below the burn areas, including the Thomas Fire burn area, to develop a personal family plan. Do so starting today. We ask you to, number one, consult with this interactive map, learn whether or not you live in an area that is at extreme or high risk. Number two, know where you're going to go in the event of evacuation. Have a plan. To a relative's house, to a friend's location that's been pre-designated, going to go to a hotel. Where is it that you and your family are? We will endeavor to use every means possible to notify members of the community about an evacuation, but understand that depending on the timing, functionality of technology, the available resources, and the size of the area to be evacuated, we may not be able to knock on every door or deliver messages to every phone or every computer. In fact, what we found in the Thomas flood situation was that some people, believe it or not, in this day and age, don't have telephones still and don't have computers, and they don't read the paper. So we're asking you to share any messages that you receive about approaching storms with your family members, your friends, and remember, please, sign up for Aware and Prepare so that you can receive alert notice before a storm event is underway. And you can do that by going again to readysbc.org. I also want to emphasize to you that the protocol that we've just described, timeline that developed, has been what we will use if we receive sufficient warning from the National Weather Service that a major storm is on the way. But it's important to also note that there could be rare instances where a rogue storm cell hits our community, causes flash flooding and debris flow, very little warning. And there may not be time to get evacuation messages. One such storm did hit us here in Santa Barbara County, January of 2017, caused extensive flooding, debris flow, and damage at El Capitan, located below the Sherpa fire burn area. We are going to be developing a comprehensive public education plan future that will address such topics, educate people that they need in that type of situation to seek high ground. That could be by moving to a temporary refuge area, a place like the school, church, or another building that's located at a higher elevation than your residence. Moving to high ground could also mean moving laterally from your neighborhood to a higher elevated street, building, or neighborhood that is nearby. And in extreme circumstances, where a flash flood is already in progress, moving to high ground could mean moving immediately up to a second story home if you have one, even getting up on top of a kitchen. Please remember that our top priority is always to be your safety or protection. Many areas of our county have become vulnerable. Next few years, we will all be experiencing new normal about how we must deal with potential dangers of approaching storms, resulting in flooding, and debris flow. Everyone's responsibility to prepare now by understanding what steps we will take to protect you if a storm hits, but also what steps you can take ahead of time to protect yourself. I thank you, and I'd like to turn it over to CHP Captain Cindy.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. I announced today at the press conference that we will close the 101 northbound at the 150 and southbound at Milpas, along with all the on-ramps in both directions between the 150 and Milpas when an evacuation order is given. We will only do this after the 72-hour pre-evacuation advisory, the 48-hour recommended evacuation warning, and after the 24-hour mandatory evacuation orders have been provided. So you will have plenty of time to evacuate. So by the time this is being put in place, it'll be about 10 hours after you should have all been out of the area. So don't worry, you will have time to evacuate. Again, we know that this is a huge inconvenience. However, it is necessary to do this to protect lives. And we ask that everyone follow the evacuation orders and stay out of the area until it is deemed safe to return. The current traffic situation in Montecito and Carpinteria is extremely congested. The CHP is committed to assisting the motorists in these areas. I hope you guys saw our officers directing traffic on San Ysidro today. If you are commuting on the 101 and do not work or live in Montecito or Carpinteria, please stay on the freeway. The surface streets are just as congested and you will not get there any faster. We ask for your patience as Caltrans work on the bridges on the 192. We do not know when these bridges will be repaired, so the 192 will be impacted for quite a while for our future. We ask that you be patient with the work crews on Olive Mill and Hot Springs. These roads are now open. However, there's a lot of work still being done in these areas. So we're all gonna need to learn to coexist with these work trucks and work crews in this area until things can return to a new normal. So we just thank you for your continued support and your patience, and we will persevere through this. And now I'm gonna turn it back over to Rob Lewin.
I know that we all want to get to the questions, but I wanted to bring up a subject different than dealing with interactive map and being storm ready. I want to talk to you a little bit about debris. First, I want to talk about public debris on the public right-of-ways and the public facilities such as debris basins and channels. We all know the importance of clearing out the debris basins and channels that run through the community. This work by the County Flood Control District and the Army Corps of Engineers continues. Much progress has occurred and there is much more to do. Currently, we're 50% done with the debris basin. Debris from this work is taken to a quarry in Buellton. The debris from the public right-of-ways is taken to a sorting facility where it is separated. The rocks are taken to a quarry, the soil is taken to the beach, and the vegetation is chipped for future utilization. Now I'd like to talk about private debris on your properties. Let me first start with a show of hands of folks that have mud and rocks and debris on your property. Well, we care about that a lot. Let me talk about some of the things that we're working on and some information for you. The private property material currently can be taken to landfills, mining sites, and other outlets identified on our information sheet provided by our Public Works Department. We know for most this is expensive due to the fees and the hauling of long distances that cost. We know we need more alternatives to this option, and here is what we are currently working on. We are rolling out a debris exchange website. You will hear about this listserv will provide an opportunity for people who have soil and rocks to find people who want soil and rocks. The soil that was deposited on people's property was randomly tested in 10 locations, and in all cases, the soil test indicated it was suitable for domestic use in landscape. It may also have uses on farm field. We all know that the Montecito sandstone rocks are beautiful and may also have value as building material. This exchange will provide an opportunity for people to benefit. The county will not be involved in the exchange. This is a market-driven process. We are merely providing the platform for it. We have asked permission from the state to expand the capacity of our county-owned Tahigas landfill. This will allow for debris to be taken that has at a reduced cost to the current charge and ensure that the lifespan of the landfill for waste is not reduced. We are continuing to look to our Ventura County neighbors to determine if they have old mining sites that would want the value of having the material to remediate their mines. There's still much work to do on this. We are trying to find a large piece of property in the community to create a temporary transfer station so we can separate the material and provide a place for people to take their material to a location close by. We have put together a household hazardous waste pickup program that we will be announcing soon. This program will be designed so that on a given day, there will be curbside pickup of hazardous waste that would typically be in your garage, such as paints and fertilizer. For now, we would just like you to set that material aside someplace safe. Finally, we are encouraging people to find innovative ways to keep the material on their property, both in the short term and the long term, to work with your architects and engineers to identify how to improve your property with the material on site. We ask that if you choose to do this, you must ensure that the material does not pose a threat during future debris flows to your neighbors or communities. And again, we remind you all to sign up for alerts at readysbc.org. And I want to just conclude that recovery is hard and storm readiness is hard. But let's all agree that to not be scared, but instead to be prepared. And we're going to now have the state. Okay, we're going to invite our public health officer up, Dr. Charity Dean.
Hi, Dr. Dean. I'm the Public Health Department Health Officer for Santa Barbara County. Can't slides very well. Who's the I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the common questions that we've been asked from the community and from agencies and from people that are doing work. So the first question that we're getting a lot is about the health effect of dust. And the main health effect about dust is that it's an irritant to your lungs, your eyes, your mucous membranes, your throat. If you are someone that has underlying health conditions like asthma, this dust can trigger an asthma attack. It can make it harder for you to breathe. So if you're someone that's already sensitive, then you need to take precaution. The other question that we're getting is what kind of germs are present in dust? People have been very in tune with the testing that's been done of the mud that found levels of fecal bacteria, and they're asking, Is that going to be blown into the air and am I going to get sick from breathing in this air? That is not a mode of transmission that we think about with these fecal coliform bacteria, meaning they're not going to be aerosolized and you breathe them in and then get a GI illness. However, there is one germ that could be in the dust that's blown up, and that's called poxy or valley. The risk in southern Santa Barbara County is low. This is not a high endemic region for poxy, but I want to provide you with all the information and say that the chance isn't zero. This is a germ that could be in the dust, and we put out a press release last week on poxy or valley fever if you have more questions about it. The best way to protect your lungs is when you're out in dusty conditions, wear an N95 or a P100. That will help protect you when you breathe in the air that could have even small invisible particles. I know all of you are really familiar with these masks because of the Thomas fire. So now's a good time to get your mask out if you're one of those people that could be wearing one. The next thing I want to tell you about is the air quality index. Again, I think everyone is probably well versed on the air quality index, the Thomas fire. But what you may not know is that a new monitoring station has been put very close to this school. It's actually just north of the intersection here at San Ysidro and East Valley Road. And the monitoring station is measuring the particulate matter in the air. You can check the hourly results. You can go online. OurAir.org is the website for the Air Pollution Control District. On that website, you're going to scroll down under current air quality conditions. There's a link to the new air monitor. You click on that link, and you can even look at an hourly report for every hour. I was out here a few days ago and looked at the hourly report, and some people might find that helpful. Keep in mind, that is just a point in time measurement of the air at that exact time. It can change with wind conditions. It's just at that one location, so it's not saying all of Montecito has that air, but it might be helpful to you as you're making decisions about your health. The readings on it have fluctuated between good, moderate, and unhealthy for sensitive groups. And sensitive groups are pregnant women, young children, and those with underlying health conditions, underlying heart conditions, underlying lung conditions. If you're one of those people, you are going to be more sensitive to the dust or the invisible particulates in the air than someone that doesn't have those conditions. Slide. And here is just a colorful depiction of the different levels of the air quality index. And if you'd like to see more, please go on to OurAir.org. The Air Pollution Control District has done an excellent job of explaining this. Mud. We have received a number of health questions about mud. The biggest question is what could be in the mud? Well, the testing that was done immediately after the mudslides, it was done at homes at 10 different locations for the purpose of safety for the first responders that were out in the mud. And it did show high levels of fecal coliform bacteria. And this was not a surprise. We knew that this was very possible because of damage to some of the sewer infrastructure in homes. Also, there are poison oak oils in the mud. I have learned a lot about poison oak in the last month, and one of the things that's been interesting, one of the after effects that we see after natural disasters that we've seen here is that the oils from the poison oak actually spread out in the water. And so even though the mud or the wet mud or the water might be miles away from where the poison oak originated, you still can get poison oak if you're wading around in that, or if you get it on your skin. And a number of have been reported to us and that I've looked at of atypical poison oak. So if you get a rash after working in the mud, think of another thing that could be present in the mud is the household hazardous chemicals. Please be aware of that. Slide. Then the last question is, how do I protect myself during cleanup? Wear the right clothes for the task. Wear long pants, wear long sleeve. Wear an N95 mask, especially if you're sensitive. Wear eye protection if you need to. Please wear closed-toed shoes to protect your mind and protect your feet. And be mindful of cuts to your skin. Again, this mud can contain sewage bacteria in places. And so some of the things that we're seeing is wound infections with atypical bacteria, meaning with bacteria that we typically see in water or that could be linked to sewage. And so when you get a cut on your skin or if you have an abrasion, please clean it really well after doing that cleanup work. You can put a little bit of antibacterial ointment on it if you want. And just be mindful of your own health while you're doing cleanup. What kind of conditions have we been seeing? Well, so at Public Health Department, we have a division of communicable disease control. So if there were a large outbreak of GI illness from people being exposed, we would know. And what's been amazing is we haven't seen that. That's something that we've really been watching for, and we just haven't seen that. So that's the good news. The bad news is the number one thing that we're seeing is rashes. So please really be mindful of your health out there doing cleanup. Take the right measures to protect yourself. And if you need to be one of those people wearing an N95 mask, there are distribution locations. We're handing those. I'm going to stay around for questions. You can ask me anything.
And our last speaker with closing comments before we go to Q&A, I am pleased to present California State Senator Hanna Beth Jackson.
Well, good evening. I've just come in from Sacramento. I was going to give you a little update, but I feel the first thing I need to do is pretend I'm Richard Simmons and ask all of you just to breathe. We will get through this. And you're all here. You're all home. And it's so nice to have you home. I live very close to here. I know a lot of you, not just politically, but we're friends, we're neighbors, we're at the very least. We drive down Hot Springs Road every now and then. I don't do much cooking, so I enjoy Janine's and all the other spots where I suspect I bumped into some of you as well. So I just want to share with you just a couple hopefully reassuring thoughts. I happen to be the chair of the legislature's Emergency Management Committee. Just so happens that I do that. And in fact, December 4th, I was banging down the gavel after a discussion about our emergency awareness system. Some of you got that messaging during the fire at about 2:30 in the morning and were wondering what that was all about. Our emergency alert system is really in need of work. And I held a hearing on that on December 4th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and banged the gavel down at 5 and said, well, it's December. Hopefully we won't have any more fires to contend with and we can address this issue going forward. And of course, literally an hour and a half later, the Thomas fire started. So I actually have introduced legislation when it comes to making sure that we're all getting the emergency alert system and that it is a much better system. You know, 911 is 40 years old. The world has changed dramatically. Another bill I've done, and I hope each and every one of you are aware of this, is a bill that makes sure that if you have fire insurance, you are covered because this event, the MUDS, the 1-9 event, whatever we're calling it, clearly were proximately caused by the fire, and every insurance company should be covering this event as if it had been a fire event. And I want to make sure that is the case. And if you're having any problem with that, please call my office. I have staff here, they're going to kill me. But please call the office or speak with DOS or speak with any of these folks here. We are determined you are going to get whatever assistance is available in that regard. So let me just say I have been in regular touch with the Office of Emergency Services. I spoke with the head of it yesterday, Mark Ghilarducci. DOS mentioned he was here in the district. I know he met with Mona, he met with everybody here. He's the fellow who's sort of like the traffic cop. And he has been involved in a number of the major events, I think in Katrina, and every major event in this country for probably the last 15, 20, or 30 years. And he said this is the most complicated event he has ever seen. And wanted me to assure you that the state has a responsibility to assure that recovery takes place and is supporting the extraordinary efforts that this county is making, unbelievable efforts, the working together. We've got FEMA out there, we've got the Highway Patrol, we had Caltrans put the freeway back in shape, we even had Amtrak coming in, we've got Ron here, Mona's doing an amazing job, Matt is in charge of this recovery, everybody is working on all cylinders. This was an extraordinary event. And so I think we all need to be aware of that. But we're all here because we're resilient, and we are going to make sure that we prevail, but do so smartly. So the cleanup and debris I know is an issue. The OES is working with the county, as mentioned. We will figure this one out. There is so much, 2 million cubic yards of mud and debris. I mean, almost unheard of. We will and are finding places for that. Preparing for the next event, please, if you're asked to leave, do so. Weather is always a little finicky. I come from a place back east where we used to say, if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute. But these events, we might miss one or two, they might not happen, but it doesn't matter, because if the third time around we have a major disaster like we've had, there will be more loss of life, and none of us here want that to happen, so please pay attention. Fourth, the recovery itself. Mr. Ghilarducci says, remember, and he said, please remind the people this is a marathon, not a sprint. There is a lot of work to be done. And for most of us here, we're dealing with the short term, the midterm, and the long term because we want to rebuild. This is indeed the most beautiful place on the planet in which to live, and we all want to be here. So, as we get through the difficult times and we envision the future, the new infrastructure, buying down the risk, I'd like you to give some thought to that as we make sure we take care of everything we need to do in the present and in the immediate future. We, on the state level, I can tell you I've discussed this matter personally with the governor. He's very well aware of what's happening here. I invited him to come down just yesterday. I think I was at a meeting with him, asked him to come down to Montecito to meet with the people of the community. He said he would. He was actually going to come earlier, but he got sick. And I told him now that he's well, we expect him to come and to tour and to meet with the community and to at least get eyeballs on what's been happening, both in terms of the disaster itself and how this community has come together. The Bucket Brigade, by the way, you're now famous up in Sacramento. And I tell people this is the most extraordinary community anywhere in California, and indeed my own stepson was here this past weekend to celebrate. My husband had a big birthday. They were supposed to practice some songs together. He called up and said, I'm sorry, I'm literally knee-deep in mud. Abe Powell caught me. And so he was here, and we're all a community. We're all in this together. We need to be patient. The people are genuinely working as hard as possible. Remember, this has been an extraordinary event, but we are an extraordinary community. So please, know that the state is working with you. Know that the FEMA is working with you. The county is doing extraordinary work, and we will overcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. And I'm going to repeat that. Take another deep breath. Doesn't that feel good? So I also want to recognize, before we go into Q&A, our County Supervisor, Joan Hartman, is also here with us in support. And the way we're going to do the question and answer, I've got a few to start, but there you are. If you want to ask a question, we've got a mic in the front of the outer two aisles, and you might just line up and we'll take each question. We also have subject experts in the audience, as well as our experts on stage. So if it's something that Department of Water Resources, the State Office of Emergency Services, our county flood control, if you're sitting in the audience, I think that you can just come up to one of those two microphones as well, and then otherwise our experts up here will come back to the podium. Couple of things before I do the first two questions. Say it with me all together. The website is readysbc.org. Very good. And then also you heard several times reference to 1-9 debris flow. So we asked everyone earlier today, we're going to ask everyone posting information on social media, the media, that this event is the 1-9 debris flow. Montecito is not a mudslide, and that we are proud of this community. It is a debris flow that happened here. So thanks for helping us get all consistent on that message. Right? Give yourselves a hand. The other thing, out again in the lobby, we've got the hashtag 805 strong wristbands because this county is with Montecito. We are 805 strong. We're all together in this. So again, thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to start off. You can also submit questions. We have cards and pencils out in the lobby. So the first question is this meeting for preparedness in general, or is there a prediction of another incident?
Well, I'm hoping we have we had a poster I was hoping would be here tonight. That was the history of rainfall in Santa Barbara County. It's on our Santa Barbara County hydrology website if you want to look at it. It shows intensities over the course of time. And unfortunately, a half-inch of rain per hour is a common experience. Every year, generally, there is at least one storm that has a half an inch per hour. So that is something that we're going to have to realize.
The next question is, and I'll read it verbatim. To begin, we are so very grateful for all you are doing for us in recovery and future protection. Is there any information on work happening in the backcountry to dynamite large boulders or anything done to help prevent large debris from coming down?
So, first of all, thank you for your thank you. And I assure you that everybody does this because they believe in it. We're all public servants who feel the word servant is our responsibility, and we do that because we believe in it. The question of mitigation measures, what I heard in the question of can we get up on the mountains and make those rocks smaller? The mountains rise from sea level to over 4,000 foot elevation. They're chock full of rocks. There's an endless supply. That's something God gave us, and in many ways they're beautiful. But the concern are the rocks that are now in the channels above the community and on the mountains that are now no longer held up by brush and have also been loosened up by the 1-9 free flow event. So it's not possible to do that mitigation. There are 3 reports that are going to come out. We're going to post those all together on our website. They're the Bear report, the WIRT report, and the Watershed Core Team report. They together comprehensively will demonstrate that what the mitigation measures have up in the forest, what possible down in the areas below the forest, and then where are the choke points and what can be done in those. And so in general, you'll be able to take a look at that as soon as a week or 2, depending on when the report.
We're going to start right.
Low here, but again, I want to say thank you all for continuing to share this information with us and helping build our community back. I'm really impressed. My question is, Doss, you mentioned earlier the 2 pilot programs for debris removal. Could you please tell us what those 2 neighborhoods are? You said it's a pilot. Does that mean there are going to be other neighborhoods that may receive the same type of a program? And if so, how does one sign up?
So the way that you could sign up is just by signing up either for the Abe Powell's Montecito Bucket Brigade or for Habitat for Humanity. Because the only way we can accomplish this is normally using public resources to help one private property is illegal. So the only way we can legally do it is with this nonprofit part. So that's how you would sign up. We're doing basically Santa Elena neighborhood stuff this weekend. It involves swearing in all our volunteers as federal disaster workers. There's some issues still. Very many kinks. If it works out, then we can think of doing more of it. That, as long as FEMA's patience lasts and as long as our lawyers don't have their hair caught on fire because of the possible liability, we'll be able to hopefully expand.
So have the homes in those neighborhoods been notified this? Because you said properties get dumpsters, and so we're working in that. But
Yes, that's where I just was between the beginning and the Q&A just now. We were meeting with a group of those homeowners. There was about 30 of them there. We're going to try to get the message out as much as possible. And the other thing that I would be lax if I didn't mention, it's actually easy right now to dispose of organics. So one of the things that you can do on any property is separate out your trees and brush, which you can dispose of at normal rates at Marburg or at the transfer center. And that way, whether you're doing it through you facilitate the fact that if we only get 3 roll-off boxes, you make those count. And if your lot's too large or we're not, you know, we can't expand the program fast enough, then you can do it privately for a lot less money if you separate out your organics. I also would be lax if I didn't mention that we have to thank Montecito Union School for having us here. Their school board president, Gwen Laurie, is right here, so let's give them a round of applause. Oh. And Gina just asked me to answer an insurance question that's come up. A lot of people are doing battle with their insurance companies right now. And I know that some of you would be bolstered by a letter from our Office of Emergency Management saying that the fire was the proximate cause and saying that we expect there could be more debris at a later date. So if you want that letter, our office is preparing a form letter for that, and Rob and the Office of Emergency Management will sign that form letter to you. And if there's any specifics that you think you need in your battling with your insurance company, let our office know. My chief of staff is right here. Raise your hand, Darcel, because we're working on that.
Head of the Department of Insurance for the state of California was here last week. He's already made a declaration to that effect, that insurance should be covering, fire insurance should be covering this loss. So either contact DOS or the Department of Corporations. I think the letter is right on their website, or let my office know. But there's already been a determination that this event was proximately caused or by this event, by the fire. So it's important that you assert that. Could I ask, by the way, how many people are fighting with their insurance companies that don't believe this is inappropriate? Is there a particular company? USAA, they're notorious. Anybody else, or it's just USAA? Okay. Nationwide? Gold State? All State? All State? All right. Thank you. We will get right on that.
We're going to go to this side of the room.
Thank you. I guess my question is for Director Lewin. I've heard a lot of different time frames thrown out. Are we talking about 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, where we might be at risk of these debris flows? And then I just want to plug the Montecito Association, its staff and president, and thanks for all the notifications and information.
A great question. How long will we be threatened by future debris flows? So the short answer is it could be as long as 5 years. It could be as short as 2 or 3 years based on how much moisture we get. The brush needs to grow back. That's the solution. The mountains need to heal. They want to. They're chaparral. That's what they do. So we want nice, gentle rain on our mountains so the chaparral will grow fast.
Before we go back to this side of the room, we've got one in writing. Why is there no emergency siren system in place?
So great question again. So let me just back up. If we go back over 100 years, the way that communities were alerted was by bells, church bells, fire station bells. Then during, of course, World War II, we were concerned about bombing, and sirens were instituted. And sirens were the alerting mechanism in many countries to let people know. And sirens are still used in some places, particularly below dams. And if you go up into San Luis Obispo County, they're up there for alerting for a nuclear event at the power. Sirens are not the panacea that you would think they are. They require a lot of maintenance. They're very expensive. And in order to get good coverage, they have to be located in many, many areas, particularly in communities that have canyons. The modern day siren is your smartphone. We are able to send you alerts through Aware and Prepare alerting, and you must have that sign up. You must do that sign up. We can use the WIA system even with all its faults. Many of you have received our WIA alerts that activate your phone even when it's in the quiet. It will wake it up, send that obnoxious sound, and give you a 90-character message. The problem with that message is it's only 90 characters. It's extremely hard for us to put a cogent message together in 90 characters. The other problem with that system is it sends the message essentially county-wide and beyond. And so the Federal Communications Commission recognizes these problems. We have sent letters. The state senator has sent letters. Our congressmen, our U.S. senators have sent letters to the FCC, and we have, even before this storm, saying this needs to be fixed. And in fact, supposedly in November of 2019, that system will be fixed so we can do 90 characters, more than 90 characters, and we can send it so it says directly to the community that's impacted, not this county-wide alerting. With that, the best thing you could do, again, is sign up for Aware and Prepare. We sent out many, many alerts. Many of you got. We used every mechanism possible to alert communities, and we always will.
I'll add to that I don't usually disagree with Rob, but there's one thing that is even better is a copper landline. I know that seems very retro, but I've done extensive studying into our cell to 911 problem. A cellular phone is not all it's cracked up to be for emergency response. And if you have a copper landline, I'm not saying an internet landline, I mean a copper landline, it is much more resistant to outages, and we can give you a reverse 911 call, and it's very easy to target geographically. I also would be lax if I didn't mention that the sheriff is going to have a lot of challenges, and we have to be cognizant of that. If he didn't mention it because he's sheepish, on a typical day before this disaster, there's one officer on the street in Montecito. All you have to do is go around these days and say, there's a lot more uniformed personnel in Montecito. The price tag of doing that this year will be another 1.6 million that he doesn't have. So this is something that we have to think about as a community going forward, because there's going to be ongoing needs here in Montecito, and we've got to figure out how to make that happen. Fortunately, we always have the Montecito Association, who's been very good at forwarding me your issues, and our president, Charlene Nagel's over there.
Back to you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Marcus Lopez. Lopez Estate, Old Spanish Town. Old Spanish Town was halfly eliminated. But before I go with my question, I would like to say let's have a moment of silence
Let's do that, everyone.
for people and our children. They're not here.
Thank you.
I'd like to congratulate all the departments, first responders, and all the agencies and their representatives in order to articulate and explain the situation that's facing us here in Montecito. This is a very profound time we live in, and I think all of us are up to the challenge. Couple of questions, and that is, When the debris from the roads were dumped on private property, whose responsibility is that, number one? Second of all, is the county Forest Service, whatever entities are reseeding with native plants? And the last question is, which is the white elephant in any room, what is happening to addressing the mental health with our community that are either in the American Red Cross facilities and hospital facilities or other facilities? And how is the county, the state, or FEMA addressing the question of mental health? Thank you.
Okay, so the first question was about mud and debris that was pushed onto people's properties from the road. So it's a, first of all, if you believe that it was pushed onto your property, you can go on our website and get a claim form and file it with the county. It's not a complicated claim form. And that said, it really depends on why the material was pushed onto your property. If it was done during rescue operation, in other words, there was material that had to be pushed off so that they could get in and do search and do rescue, then that is going to be considered part of the emergency. And that's an important part. If it was done in another way, which we don't know that there was really much of that going on, where our county roads just simply pushed it to clear roads, then of course you need to file a claim. The second question that was asked was about reseeding. So in the Burn Area Emergency Response Team report, which actually is out on the Forest Service website now, they will put mitigation measures in there. They do these reports on every. The problem with the Los Padres National Forest is it's steep. It's very steep. And the use of, they don't do hydro seeding anymore because of the issues. They found that there's enough seed in the ground for that. What they often will do in places, they'll strategically do what's called hydromulching. It's the same process without the seed in the mulch. The reason that that is probably not at all useful in the areas is the ground is too steep and it won't hold, and obviously the timing of it is not good. It's not like we had a fire in August and we had time for that hydromulch to take effect. We're in the middle of winter right now, believe it or not. The third question is a very good question.
So mental health is extremely important in some of our services that we offer to the community. For this incident and the last 2 months, we've had services available through the local Recovery and Assistance Center, which continues at the Disaster Recovery Center, which will continue when we announce a location for the Montecito Information Center, a lot of centers that we are providing so we can reach the community. We also have a couple phone numbers, including on a card in the back of the room in the lobby. Please take one. It is our behavioral wellness access line card with a 24/7 phone number for any assistance. You can also get this information and reach out to us through our helpline, which is 833, this is a toll-free number, 833-688-5551.
Hi there. First of all, I just want to say thanks for organizing this. I'm grateful for an opportunity for the locals here to really come and just speak together, share our concerns and our thoughts, hear what you have to say. My specific question/statement has to do with preparedness. While I appreciate everything that our responders have said to us and the new system that you got, my concern is that there was not some at least halfway measure approach this in the first place. This is 2018. My concern is that we have a school like UCSB, which is one of the foremost geological environmental study schools in the world. We have to share community with them. I even spoke to people out in the geology department. They told me that no one in the county was in touch with people that do this kind of map for a living, and that can use technologies and in a matter of 20 minutes, input topographical maps and use an X value like rainwater, 0.25 inches to 10 inches. Ron over here talked about scientists that studied this. I would like to see the days and the scientists that studied this. I would like to see the inputs that they put of the rainwater fall. And I would like to know why we used a fire map for a water-based emergency. Why? Who was in charge of this? Whoever was in charge of this is probably a good person. There's a lot of good people out there. I've gotten in a car accident. I'm a good person. People that hit me are probably good people, but good people fuck up. And I want to know who was in charge of this. And with the technology that exists today, if you're telling me you used this and it was improperly used and you didn't foresee this, that's a problem. That's a problem for what happened. That's a problem for the future. We sure as hell shouldn't be using that same software. And if you didn't use that software, what the hell? Who's in charge up there? This is 2018. This is not acceptable. And you can easily figure that sort of information out to at least get a slightly better understanding of what could have transpired. And then look at this map of the mandatory versus voluntary. Now we're all in mandatory. But you tell me where all this destruction went down. People were not looking at the property. That's why I'll stop from ranting. But thank you for listening. And I hope that we can get some answers to this, because somebody fucked up, probably somebody good. But let's get some answers, please.
Clearly, this is very difficult. The efforts that we undertook previous to the storm had never been undertaken prior at any time in Santa Barbara County. We had a burn area emergency response team, the Forest Service team, and the CAL FIRE watershed emergency response team. The scientists included hydrologists and geologists and botanists, et cetera. Get to the Thomas Fire on December 10th to begin the process of looking at what the effect of this fire was on our watershed. Watershed being everything above and below community. These scientists usually take a month or more to get these reports done. We had pressed on them while the fire was burning that we needed a map now, that we needed something now. We needed to have information now because it was a December fire. And as we all know, December fires are rare, and then to have the largest fire in California's history occur in December really stunned us all. It burned at high intensities through this county. I have spent my career in the fire service, and I had never heard of a fire with the rates that this fire had burned. And when I flew over that fire following it, the entire watershed was gone. There was not any vegetation in the riparian areas. There was nothing left to hold it up. And we began to sound the alarm that this was an issue. And we took the information that we had available to us and we processed it as best we could. And beginning on December 5th, the Friday before the storm, we held a press conference where we showed the areas of risk and we talked about it. It was the best information we had, and we had our scientists with us. And then we began the process of doing an evacuation 30 hours prior. Now, many will look back and say that more could have been done. Of course, more can have been done. Of course, we can all learn from our lessons learned. But I want to tell you, and I want to say it straight up here, what we did had never been done before in this county. We stuck our necks out to alert this community and the communities of Carpinteria and I don't get to take back, and nor do any of the other leaders on this stage and around us get to take back the decisions we made. We own them. We own them for life. And you folks that made your own personal decisions, the decision to stay at home, the decision to leave, the decisions that you made individually with each other and your families. You all, unfortunately or fortunately, get to live with those decisions too. That's something together as a community we have to join together and understand about each other. And it's not easy to do that, right? We all have to bear the decisions we made. But part of being a leader, part of the decisions that we all made, we get to accept the good decisions we make, and we get to also accept the decisions that we wish we might have changed. But hindsight is something different and that than what we get to do. We prepared for a storm that was predicted. We got a storm that wasn't predicted. There was a band of rain that ran up into your county, into your canyons above you, that dropped a half an inch in 5 minutes. We did not prepare for that. That was not predicted. The storm we prepared for was the storm that hit Carpinteria. That's the storm we prepared for. Now we're going to do better. But it's called a disaster for a reason, because it's unexpected. It's something we can't quite muster. We can't get our hands around, and we're all going to have to deal with that. Now we got to do the best we can to be prepared in the future. Now, you want to see the reports that are coming out. They're all going to be posted on our website as soon as all three of them are together. You can look at the Bear report now, but independently, that report is not going to provide you enough value. And all those reports will be available to any scientist that wants to look at them. And if we find that there should be changes in those maps that we presented tonight, we're going to make those changes. We are not afraid to make changes in what we're doing. Thank you.
I would like to just add a few comments to Rob's comments. I'd like to prep by acknowledging tremendous amount of sadness, sorrow, loss, all of us. It's terrible. But I want you to know that what happened, as Rob said, what was predicted was not what, and what we prepared for was not what we received. We're going to have a bad storm. And as I've said before, Rob Lewin is a hero. He's a guy that rallied the emergency managers in this county and really convinced us of what the danger was, and that we had to all band together to get the message out and to prepare and to conduct an evacuation as a result of this storm. Now, there's a couple of things I want to say about it. First of all, although we've had mudslides and debris flows in the past, in the 90s and in the 60s, nothing of this destructive nature or magnitude has ever occurred here before in modern history. And as you heard, we had this intensive rainfall, half an inch in 5 minutes, that we are told by scientists is a once in 200 year event. And as I mentioned, the danger is that unfortunately our watershed is in such bad shape that it will take less even the next time to move debris. But we were the best that we could use to prepare for were estimates that these scientists predicted. And one thing that really hasn't got out in the media and really hasn't really resonated with is that we received maps from the U.S. Geological Survey that showed where the estimated destruction would be from a major storm. And the estimated destruction in that storm was above East Valley Road. In fact, it was above mountain. So it was direct, it was towards the base of the mountains and in the community, the part of the community that's just in that area. And when the emergency managers met and discussed this, they had some maps that looked similar to this, but we didn't have any way of alerting people to say, if you live along this water course and if you live on this street or that street, we have an evacuation system that is a grid, and there's been a lot of criticism saying it's a fire system. It was developed as a result of fires, but it's a grid system. It can be used for anything. And that grid system was overlaid on top of the map where the destruction was predicted, and it was well above East Valley Road, which is the cutoff. And the other reality is, those of you who live in Montecito know, East Valley Road is really the only thoroughfare that goes from east to west in the middle part of the community. And it is something, if we do an evacuation, we have to give people an understanding of what areas have to be evacuated. And it's a terrible tragedy that this occurred, but I can assure you that this was information that we received and that we acted upon, and that in all likelihood wouldn't have been taken as seriously had Rob Lewin not been as direct as he was with us about how important this was and how much this had the potential to be a danger to our community. And as it turns out, he and the scientists were right. What they weren't right about was, and what they couldn't have had any way of predicting, was this incredible event that occurred that was truly a once in 200-year event. So, as Rob said, we all made decisions. I'm the sheriff. Evacuations are the result of the orders that I give. And I've interacted with the families who have lost or who are missing people. And I can tell you it's been incredibly emotional to me, and to see them. And we are still, and I wanted to a couple of things that I didn't mention when I was up earlier that I did want to point out to people, that we're still actively trying to find the 2 people who are still missing and presumably who perished in that. And to do that, we need your help. As any of you that live on the Olive Mill Hot Springs corridor, as you go through this recovery process, and as you clear debris from your properties, we want you to be vigilant about the potential for human remains to be there. And if you suspect anything, then you call us. We will come and we will bring specially trained search dogs, and we will look through that debris for those people. We've actually scoured that corridor many times, successfully located a number of people. Still have 2 that are outstanding, and we want to find them to provide closure to those families. So again, I can assure you that all of us, in retrospect and in 2020 hindsight, have to answer the question honestly: was what we did sufficient on January the 8th? And obviously, in retrospect, it was not. And that's why we are looking in. Why we work together to come up with this new system that hopefully had a little more clarity, hopefully has a message that's a little more easily conveyed to the community. And certainly the next time something happens, the community is going to be very dialed in to what's going on. The concern is what happens if it's 2, 3, 4. We may have a couple of times where there's going to be an advisory and a storm veers off and doesn't head our way. We might have a time when there's an advisory and a warning and a storm veers off. And what we don't want people to do is to say, oh, well, they're just, giving us this information, asking us to leave, and there's no need to. The reality is, every time we ask you to evacuate or order you to evacuate, you need to. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I know we're running really late, but this is critical that we continue this. So I think we're going to go ahead, and if you need to leave, please exit quietly out through one of the doors. But if everyone is committed to staying here, we'd like to answer everyone's questions. So before we go back to the mics, I have another one that I think is a good question for everyone to hear. What is the potential for landslides without rainfall?
I think the question is probably implying, is there potential for a La Conchita style landslide? The La Conchita style landslide is a result of saturation. It's after a lot of moisture gets in the soil and a large depth of soil moves. What is a potential impact on a burn area is because we have rocks that are no longer held, that the folks that live below slopes, there's always a potential, as there is even without a fire, but more because of fire, that there could be rocks or during rainstorm mud that flows off of slopes.
Joseph E. Holland, our clerk, recorder, and assessor, mentioned on television that some homes will not be allowed to rebuild. Exactly where will homes not be allowed to rebuild? Home was damaged and not destroyed in those areas. Will you be allowed to repair your home?
So first, let me say that there is no decision that we are at all aware of about where homes would not be able to be rebuilt. Let's all remember this is the United States and the Constitution protects people's property rights. If there are programs that exist, mitigation funds that are available through FEMA that allow for the voluntary purchasing of properties in hazardous areas. And that certainly is a program that we will look at. But in no case will people just have the blindly picking a property that would be no longer buildable on. It will be done in a process that's part of what we do in our government. And with that said, clearly we need to come up with mitigation measures to protect ourselves in the future. And so we're exploring that. We will be exploring that, and that will be done with the help of the community. None of this will be done without getting assistance and advice from people here in the community that are going to be part of an advisory group.
Two-part question. On most days, greatest legacy is part of the fourth grade class here at school. Much in part because of the extraordinary leadership faculty. Can someone speak to this new plan, the guidance that will be given to the leadership of the school, and how the school should respond at these different stages? And then also maybe speak to what is the plan for the worst case scenario where we don't have 72 hours and our children are here at school and we are 10, 20, or 30 miles away? Thank you.
And I appreciate this question because I want to tell you that we've already met with all the schools in Montecito, the superintendents and the principals and other staff. Last week, we had a meeting with them. Montecito Fire Department was there, as well as the Sheriff's Department. And we went through with them the need to make sure that using the same planning they do for fires, or earthquakes, or other types of disasters, that they needed now to have a debris flow plan. And I'm happy to say that they were very receptive to it. This includes the private schools and the public school, and that they're all going to be moving forward on creating this plan, and we're going to assist them with those plans. And tomorrow morning, we have a meeting with the Carpinteria schools, both public and private, to have the same type of meeting. And in those discussions, we talked about both the need to what to do if there was a rogue storm, rogue debris flow, or what to do when there's a planned evacuation, but it's of short order, or a planned evacuation of long order. So we're addressing the three types of scenarios that could occur to a school. We will continue to work with the superintendents and principals as long as they need our assistance in providing this. Anything more from the Montecito Fire? Okay.
I guess I still don't understand at what stage you would be recommending that the school evacuate and close. Because it seems like there are various stages, and at what stage are you at least recommending that the school close and we not bring our children to school?
So the decision on when to close a school is the decision of the superintendent and principals, of course. The recommendation on when we do it, here's the process that we will use. When we get into the period of an advisory, we will be standing up an organization at a low level, but it will include the County Office of Schools, who is our conduit to all the schools in the county. And then we'll be making recommendations to them on and informing them of what's going to be occurring in the future. So the short answer is that they will be doing the same kind of evacuating. That will be our recommendation that the community is doing. We recognize that if there's quick evacuation, there's issues of transportation, all of those are going to be addressed in the school's plans. I don't know if there's anything else
Thank
to
you.
add, Mr. Rainey.
I'd like to add too that when the decision was made to evacuate or issue our notices 30 hours before the storm, we actually did have the county education department there at the table, and schools had not returned yet from the winter break. So some of that timing, they were able to put out messaging before kids were due back on Monday, which was the day that we were evacuating. So some of that did happen up front. The other thing that I wanted to mention is our Department of Behavioral Wellness, especially led by Suzanne Grimacy, has been staging compassion centers, working directly with the schools in the district, meeting with the children and the teachers. We also have materials on our website about how to talk to children about this event. So, and again, if you have any questions or anything else that we can help support, that's what we're here to do. So thank you for that question.
Yes. Good evening. My question is, there's a lot of experts being counseled, and yet there's been no local Chumash elders being counseled in these situations. The local Chumash elders have local history and knowledge beyond what reports say. And also, what is the impact of our sacred sites within our community, and if there's been dialogue with our local Chumash? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We definitely want to have the Chumash tribe as part of at the table with us as we move forward. As we start to move into some of the next steps, we have a lot of surveying to do. We know that there are a lot of sites and a lot of very special places in Montecito that have been impacted by this debris flow. So we definitely want to work with the tribe to work together to help protect the sites up and down the creeks and across. We'll be working with the tribe as we move through the next step. Thank you for your question.
I just have a brief statement to make, which is that, first of all, it's not lost on me how special it is. We're all sitting here at the auditorium at Montecito Union School. So many of the people affected by this disaster went here, kids go here, and this is really an amazing place, and we're so proud that we're all okay to say that. And also, just I wanted to compliment everyone at the county for not just your professionalism, but your incredible compassion in dealing with this crisis. I have been so impressed. All of the meetings and conversations I've been honored to be able to sit in on about how to do better in the future, the humility with which everyone has come to the conversation. And I want to say that I really do believe, because I think that so much of what we need here is hope. And I think out of this is going to come incredible ideas and partnership, public-private partnership. And Montecito, more than anything, has a great amount of human resources. We have such smart, creative, interesting people here. And I just want to urge everyone here, if you have an idea about the mountain or about anything, give that idea to your elected officials, give that idea to the county, give that idea to Mr. Rainey at the school, because it isn't all science. And as we've heard so many times tonight, we've never seen this happen again, and I'm sure we've all had experience of being in the doctor's office and suggesting something to your doctor when someone you know or care about is ill, and they look at you and go, oh, that's a good idea. And you think, well, why didn't they think of that? They're the doctor. And sometimes science and art come together in amazing ways that can not only help to make our community better in the future and us safer in the future, but can help other communities who are dealing with the same kind of wildland urban interface events that are changing our world. And so I'm really hoping that Montecito can emerge and Santa Barbara County can emerge as a leader in this and come out of this with a process and answers that emerge in ways that help people all around the world, that we be leaders and pathfinders in this way. So I just really want to urge you all, as you're falling asleep and you can't sleep because you're stressed out, just think about interesting ideas or Google interesting ideas, because there are ideas out there that we haven't yet thought of, and some of which we have that are being discussed. And so I just wanted to offer that piece of hope too, that there are things going on, and I believe we're going to find answers to a lot of these scary questions, and we're going to have a safe future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Riley. It occurs to me that about 7 hours mark the 1 month anniversary disaster. And that's not a lot of time to collect data. And I've made maps like this. And I guess the question I have is a question that a lot of other residents that I've talked to have. And that is a lot of debris went into these channels. And it might have changed the topography. It might have changed the way that the next event would actually move and move through the landscape. And I saw the mud outside of my window. So I'm like most residents, I'm nervous about this. So can you please give us a little bit of confidence, first of all, that you got the map right? Because when you put two colors like that on there, you look at where the seams are, and kind of what went into that data, and then how is that evolving over time?
Thank you for that question. So you made a great point right at the end there where you say, you have lines. That's a big problem with maps, right? There's boundaries. And I'm sure many people are going on this interactive website and going, right, I'm just in the yellow, not in the red. So that takes us to the issue of when we call for an evacuation order, it's going to include both red and yellow. Because the point that you made is very accurate, sir, in that the debris flows changed the course of our waterways. They filled them in, and there's choke points. And the map is reflective of the scientists that did it, looked at every choke point, and there were hundreds of them along the way that they analyzed. They did it on the ground, and they did it using a system called LIDAR. And, sorry? Good question, I'm sorry. That's, so you have a choke point could be a bridge. It could be a really large rock that will change the course of that waterway. It could be a curve that is now filled in with debris. It could be a variety of things that could change the direction of the course. And so the scientists use this. They gave us this map, and I know that they had it peer reviewed. We hope that scientists will continue to review the reports and continue to give input. But in the end, the reason that we have now 2 zones on there is because we recognize that the red areas, the yellow areas could become red areas during a debris storm, much like they did as we saw. I hope I captured the, is there more I can?
I'm one fire.
Unfortunately, we ask a lot of questions about insurance, and when we called the state commissioner's office to get a variety of, in the end, it was one of these issues where you just have to go talk to your insurance companies. It is not very clear exactly on how things are done, even though, and also you can contact the state insurance.
God, I really encourage the latter. I mean, your insurance companies, there is an adversarial element to this relationship at a certain level. So the insurance commissioner is notoriously pro-consumer, and they're going to give you some good information probably on if they think you have the ability to contest. Absolutely. The Department of Insurance is it's fairly big bureaucracy because they have to have lots of actuarials. So if you have a hard time getting through to them, call our office. But they have a website, they have contact, they have 3 offices regionally. They have a Southern California office in LA area.
I have a all creek in our back. Been here 7 years. I've Oak Creek, complete water. Go across during this event, but I drove the neighborhood. During this event, that house. My understanding, I'm not no reservoir water numbers that's what also all fire hydrants. I was told proposal water department also fired. And second question, how much impact water?
Well, I'm happy to defer to anyone from the district, but I've had to, in representing you in the legislature, I had to learn something about water. One of the basic things about water is if someone's talking to you in feet, they are making the number bigger than it actually is. If you're not talking in acre feet, but you're talking in gallons, then you're making the number sound bigger. And that is a relatively small amount of water compared to what was moving down in our watershed. That's my opinion. The water district can probably give you better answers, but I just wanted to tell you that usually my BS detector goes off when someone's talking gallons instead of acre feet about water. And if they're trying to tell you that it's a significant amount of water compared to this.
Well, the other question was through time been short on. So proposals have been made in the past. Build base hill cap. Creek behind our house dry. Water raining. Where was that water? Only concern it water. I was told no one. I saw guys out in the pit. Fire hydrant.
Sure.
It was still gushing out.
And well, one element of your question was if there were more dams up there, would we be safer? The answer probably is yes. I'm not sure about full dams, but debris dams definitely. And there have been cases. I hope Suzanne is still here because she'll be happy that I mentioned this. There have been cases of debris basins proposed. I know one case in the over in Toro where just so much neighborhood opposition caused them to be turned down. If people have changed their mind, and I hope they have in some of these cases, we may be able to do something. And there's a lot of land use planning questions that we're going to wrestle with as a community. Some of it will involve questions like, should we rebuild on the most dangerous spots or not? How would we negotiate that as a community so that we don't take away people's private property rights? If you're interested in that or other questions, like some of the other ones that have come out is undergrounding utilities, or how are we going to redo the trails, things like that, then I encourage you to fill out our sort of land use stakeholders survey, which is at the countyofsantabarbara.org /DOS, that's me, /Williams, or Google me, First District Supervisor DOS Williams, because we've had thus far about 400 people in the community do this survey, but I would love to make it as representative as possible and have everybody's input.
Thank you.
I'd also like to just point out that we do have John Fry, raise your hand. You might want to meet individually right down here on this side with our county public works. So anything about the debris basins, anything about some of that, you could speak to John.
Excuse me. Can you hear me? There have been some questions that have been raised about people having problems with deductible issues and other things relating to their insurance policy. I want to give you a free website. Many of you know me already from the meetings we've had about this, called insuranceconsumers.com. Free information, answers most of your questions about deductibles and about other issues. And if you need additional help, free, Google me, Ray Boris, Bourhis. Insurance companies are going to be playing games. I'm sorry to tell you. I know that because I've done it for 40 years. They'll play games on deductibles. They'll play games on additional living expense. They'll play games on using their experts to tell you what your loss is worth, try to convince you to take a low ball off. Don't do it. If I can help you in any way, again, I can't emphasize this enough. This information is free. Let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. Figured everybody's together. Time to bring up suggestion, comment. Something I noticed was the intercommunication between all the different emergency departments. It seemed like there was a little bit of a lack. No, what I noticed after the flood, we were in the backyard assessing. Friend had fire scanner. We were about to go in the creek. I just heard on the radio that there's potential could be another flood rate. After that, okay, we're out. 5 minutes later, search and rescue shows up. 3-man team marching up the creek. We're like, hey, we just heard on the radio there could be a potential dam break. Oh, we're out of here. 10 minutes later, another crew shows up doing the same thing, investigating the creek. Told them, and they're like, okay, we're out of here. So I don't know, moving forward, I know you guys don't really have a stop. Whatever, that's what I noticed. There's a central hub where everybody can know where everyone's at. A certain rescue crew was like, well, yeah, we're on our own. We just show up at leisure and crew going across doing this.
Okay, well, thank you for your statement, and we very much appreciate you being here and bringing that to our attention. As we've evolved over the last 30 years in emergency services, we've worked very hard to develop interoperable communications so that everybody is on the same page at the incident. And what you've pointed out is that we haven't quite made it there yet. So we continue to work on that. And the way that we tried to solve that during this incident was actually putting law enforcement and fire resources together so that they were getting the same information. Thank you.
No offense to you guys. Every direction.
You've been waiting patiently.
Thank you very much. So you mentioned that the storm you predicted, not Montecito, and you've mentioned that this evacuation goes into place when there is half an inch of rain. Can you help give us confidence that when you expect quarter-inch rain system to come, that we're not gonna have rain?
So, unfortunately, so I'm gonna say something tongue in cheek and that is that we all know that meteorology is one of those sciences that you can be wrong quite a bit and still keep your job.
Of course.
So this is a really hard thing because one of the limitations of meteorology is the fact that there can be these bands of rain that come in with storms and they develop, especially when you're near the ocean. So one of the things that's now in place is there's now new monitoring stations out on our island. And that's going to give us a little bit more data for our National Weather Service folks. We also have new data sites also located above Montecito. So there's been some improvements since the last on that regard. When we communicate with the National Weather Service, you can imagine that they're going to be giving us information that says there may be 0.3 inches of rain. That's pretty close to 0.5 inches of rain per hour, right? So this is the hard part, and this is why we're here to try to make those decisions as best we can. We'll be issuing out advisories, and we'll be doing the very best we can to provide every bit of information that we have to you also, so you can make decisions also on your own. But it is a very tough thing that you described. The other shortfall that we get is we would like to know how many inches, percent of inches for 15 minutes, for 30 minutes, hour, because the intensity is a big factor, as we could see the difference between what happened in Montecito and Carpinteria, where both areas got the same amount of rain essentially, but one had that band of intensity for minutes where the other area. So unfortunately, it's not a simple thing, and none of this is simple.
So, not how to ask the next question, so I'll be raggedy. So do we, I mean, would you advise that if there's rain predicted, we call our friend and say we'd like to use our rain room today? Or do we wait for the warning? Or can you even answer that?
So we want you to live your life. We want you to have a hope. We want you to have a future. We want you to create your community. We want you to spend a lot of money in your local restaurants and in your stores, get our economy turning. We want to have a recovery. And the simple answer is that the one thing we also want you to do is make sure that you have a suitcase always ready, that you have plenty of batteries, your cell phone is charged, you have chargers in your vehicle, your gasoline tank has fuel in it, that you are prepared. And we can get used to this sort of life. We're going to have to get used to it too. And we're going to be activating our emergency operations center. Our firefighters are going to be gearing up. Our deputies are going to get called in for even more overtime. And you also are going to have to be prepared to have a bit of a transient life. And we can do that, and we can do that with a smile and do the best we can. We're going to try to let you know how long it'll be. So if we get a storm that's predicted for a 24-hour period, we're going to let you know, hey, this storm's a 24-hour storm, so you may only be out one day. But we may have another one that's predicted for 3 days. And you'll have to plan accordingly that. So find a place, get your plan going, talk about it every day in your family, but don't scare anybody about it. Let's just get used to the new normal together.
And I wanted to also answer your question just from the standpoint of, first, I have a 2.5-year-old, so I'm gonna recommended evacuation. I'm out of there, right? I mean, or at least I'm getting them out of there. I might sleep at the emergency operations center so that I can serve you, but I'm getting my family out of there, right? But we can't be intimidated by this. We can't stop living our lives as a community. The most dangerous thing you do almost every day, which is to go out and drive on this crazy roads and freeway. Statistically, it kills more of us than anything. But we still live our lives. And we cannot be intimidated by what we have been through. We have to continue to live as a community.
We've got two more, and then certainly everyone will stay here so that you can actually speak to them directly. We're going to start. We'll go with you.
You've done so much for us. I was wondering, as a community, if we could help you out. If when there's an evacuation, we could put some kind of placard on our home and let you know that we've gone, so that you can move faster through the community.
Thank you.
That's a very interesting idea. It's one I think that we will discuss with our emergency managers.
That's that hope and creativity I think was mentioned earlier. And we're going to go last question right here.
Yes, with all due respect, I understand that you are all experts and you're not weather gods. But with that in mind, we have rain predicted on 3 sites from the 12th through the 15th. Now that can change and fluctuate, and I understand that. But with that in mind, we haven't had rain since this event at all. I mean, maybe just some little mist. But that rain is predicted as in increments of 10, 20, 40, and 50% on varying days during that time period. That's my concern, that that's not being addressed like, well, we do have a rain coming, possibly. And I would like to know what that kind of rain prediction forecast means with your 72-hour evacuation timeline. What does it mean for this flow, the debris, the heaviness of everything? And if you could address that in some way, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
So we are aware of the potential rain that's forecast, and due to the amount of time that it's out, the forecast is not currently very accurate. We were on the phone with the National Weather Service during a normal weather conference call today at 1 p.m., like we are almost every day when there's rain forecast. And the forecasters themselves were having a difficult time wrapping their arms around the potential for rain. As you can imagine, we're very interested to immediately know as far in advance on those systems. So we continue to be in contact with them daily and sometimes even as frequently as hourly to update those forecasts. Relative to the amounts that you referenced, when we see 0.1 inches to 0.3 inches per hour, we expect that the creeks will run clear without debris. Between 0.3 inches and 0.5 inches per hour, we expect there to be a small amount of debris in the existing water courses. And then again, when we get above half an inch per hour or at half an inch per hour, that's when we can see something similar to the 1.9 debris flow event. So I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, I'll be happy to get with you afterwards. Thank you.
Where can the community get that information? Posting that somewhere on your website? Do you get those forecasts that everyone here to weather.com, or is there a place you are essentially?
So the Weather Service actually posts that information at their website, and I'll make sure, I don't have the address off the top of my head, I apologize, but I'll get with you after and hook you up with that. Thank you.
So this concludes the meeting tonight. We appreciate everyone for being here and hanging in there with us. Give yourselves a hand. And again, if you do want to speak to anyone up here on our panel, we'll certainly wait for a few minutes. And if I could have staff, maybe Sherry or someone, the bands are under the table if anyone still wants